Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, well, this works. I mean, I don't know that I'll use mine at all, but it's nice to just have it. Okay. Right, so Mike
Chris
is
Harsh.
live.
Dan, we could hear you and then you cut out. I don't know if you realize you can't be heard.
Yeah, there's a remote mic we were just kind of testing out here. Yeah, we're getting the room final tweaks to the setup here, so we should be ready to start in just maybe one more minute.
Morning, this is Carter. Just a heads up, I'm going to need to excuse myself at about 10:30.
Thanks for the heads up, Carter. Hopefully, looking at the agenda, we might be wrapped up by then, if all goes well.
All right. Apologize for the delays. Just trying this remote thing. So ironing out a few little kinks, but Mr. Chair, I believe we have a quorum now. If you want to get the meeting rolling, I think we're ready.
All right, thank you, Dan. All right, we'll start with the preamble. In accordance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusal from any vote due to conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by the Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Dan, I'll let you review the virtual meeting rules and procedures.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Virtual meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item, and then each appellant or applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation has concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comments is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member, except the chair, may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
Dan? We'll call the May 25th, 2023 Landmarks meeting to order. Dan, please call the roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Benezzi?
Here, I got it.
Mr. Kalikia? Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Edmond?
Here.
Councilmember Gray?
Here.
Alrighty. Director Wong?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick?
Here.
And Ms. Trott? All right, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum. In addition to commission members, we have Kevin Roberts, our representative from the Law Department, as well as Jessica Beam, Carl Brunges, and myself from Landmark staff present.
All right. Thank you, Dan. We'll start with certificates of appropriateness. The first case is case number 23-036, Grantwood Allotments Historic District, 10-518 Grantwood Avenue, window replacement. Would the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, this was tabled on 4/27/23, so before we proceed, I think we'll need a motion to untable.
All right, could I have a motion to take this off the table?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
That,
Okay, Dan, do you have that motion and second noted?
Yep, got it. So Ms.
Okay.
Anderson,
yes.
Mr. Benezi,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
yes,
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
and Mr. Trasick.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion to untable passes.
All right, great. All right, so I'll ask the applicant again to introduce themselves and tell us about your project. Dan, can you tell from the participant panel if the applicant is here?
Do you see them? Don't see them on the list, so maybe move on to the next agenda item and call them again later.
Okay. Yeah, if they come in later, we'll fit them back into the agenda. Move on to case number 2, 2309, Our Lady of Good Counsel Church School, Covenant Rectory and Hall, the Mary Queen of Peace Church at 4423 Pearl Road, Elevator Addition. Again, would the representative please introduce themselves and tell us about your project?
Yes, good morning. My name is Michael Couch. I'm one of the architects working on this project. The project representative Robert is somewhere on a cruise ship out of the country right now, so you're stuck with me. This project is basically a replacement. The existing church has a ramp, exterior ramp, to provide accessible entrance into the main church, which is about 5 feet above grade. What we're proposing is a small addition, which will house staircases to the upper and lower church, as well as an elevator for accessibility, as well as to carry coffins to the various levels for funerals. So here's the existing conditions, and we have this ramp that is, to be blunt, well worn and kind of fallen apart, and that would all be removed and replaced with a kind of like a 1.5 story addition in order to fit everything. Beyond, you can kind of see the pair of doors, and like I said, that's at least 5 or 6, 7 feet above finished grade. And so our addition will include staircases to the various levels, as well as the elevator. And this is a proposed rendering of the addition, kind of in the middle of your screen. So the main entrance would be as you see here. And we are proposing to match the existing brick pattern of the original church. We will salvage some of the brick from a demolition to infill some of the existing openings as required. And the water table and cornice would be cast stone.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on for design review report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was reviewed by the Muir West Design Review Committee on May 10th. This was approved. During this presentation, it was mentioned for the first time that there would be a full restoration of the front of the church. We had asked for additional information, but we have not yet received anything regarding that. I believe councilman is here for this project as well, so I'd like to introduce him as well.
All right, Councilman Harsh, would you like to add some comments?
I just was here to find out what the project is, so I'll mute myself.
Okay. Very good. And can we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff is supportive of the proposal. Feels it's a sympathetic and appropriate addition, given that we're still missing a few details, like the specific brick that will be used, and there was a reference to the restoration of the front of the church. Staff feels that it would be appropriate to table this item so that the applicant can come back to the commission with the details of the proposal for the front of the church, in addition to any outstanding details on the elevator addition.
All right. Before we consider the recommendation to table this project, I would like to hear from comments and questions from our commission members.
To the chair, Mr. Couch has his hand raised. I don't know if that is, if you're taking any comments now from.
Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
Mr. Couch?
Yes, the comments regarding the front of the church, that is not in our scope. And so we are only handling this little addition in the back.
Understood. All right. So any other elements to the project that might be part of different phases would be
A separate submittal.
an application.
Correct.
Understood. Mr. Edmund?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In light of that, Mr. Couch, you may not know the answer to one of the questions I was going to ask, which is whether the front facade restoration was going to include any ADA accessibility, or whether this would be the only accessible entrance. Do you happen to know that?
I do not. I do know that our addition is providing accessibility to the two levels of the churches, below grade as well as above grade.
Okay.
I do
I do have one additional question. Yeah, if we could go to A101, it appears that the addition will be covering the lower portion of one of the nave windows. How are you treating that? What's that going to be like on the inside? You know, what's the detail there? Thank you.
Sure. The existing windows are, because of the elevations required, a lot of the windows from the interior are actually already covered up and be, can I explain this? There'll be a window well for all practical reasons. So the parapet will extend above, and then the roof will just occur below that.
So you won't actually be covering up any more windows?
Well, no, but when you view it from the side elevations, you're not going to see the bottom half of any windows regardless.
But from the inside, you'll still have light coming through the full height of the window.
Yes, but the light would obviously be, I don't know, diminished a little bit because you will have like a continuous parapet around our addition, kind of creating a light well or a bathtub for all practical reasons. But the height is needed for the elevator.
I have a question then. Excuse me, this is Bob Strickland. How will that window well be maintained so that it doesn't accumulate excessive debris and potentially leak?
Our roof is going to be combined with the adjacent roof, and so it'll have to be accessible from the roof north to the nave. So if you look, there you go. So above the existing double doors, that roof line is kind of continuing, and so that's what we're going to follow.
Yeah, I understand that. My question is, and maybe you can answer it here, how is, if that's an open well between the parapet and the bottom portion of the window, how is that sealed, or how is it maintained to clean that up, especially if there's an awning window at the bottom?
I'm assuming this has to be part of a maintenance schedule to maintain that. I'm not sure there's no trees or anything in the area. It's just concrete surrounding it. So I don't anticipate any quote unquote debris, leaves in the area.
How is water accommodated to be relieved from that area?
We have internal drains from the various roof heights we have. In our plan, we show a couple locations where we have the leaders would combine into the existing storm below grade.
Okay, I still don't, I'm not getting it, I guess, in terms of,
Yeah, we have multiple roofs levels. It is, I will admit, very complex.
so there's some way, so is it open between the edge of the roof and the actual face of the window
Yes.
that's covered?
Yes.
That's open. So if water is allowed to get into that opening, how is it relieved?
The roof line is below the window
Oh, there's a
sill.
a
Yes.
lower roof at the
Yes.
sill of?
Yes. Yes. There's a lower roof.
Ah, okay. I understand.
Kind of like what's there now.
Okay. Great. As long as, you know, obviously any condition that's created is dealt with. Okay, I don't see any further hands. I want to add a comment then about the suggestion to table this. Given that the restoration of the front facade is not within the scope of this project, and recognizing that any work on the exterior of the church will have to come back as a separate project, I think we can deal with this applicant as far as the scope that's presented today. So if everyone agrees with that, including, so Dan, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We just, might want to add into the motion that staff would be able to see the specific brick that's being proposed to be used so that we can ensure that it matches the historic church.
Right, I would say both the brick and the mortar color, and perhaps a sample or a color chip of the precast water table and cornice. All right. So was there any other comments from the commission? If not, I would ask for a motion. Let me see. All right. Director Hung?
Well, I will attempt to make a motion, and I apologize, there's a lot of background noise. Can people hear that in the background?
No.
Okay, great. So I will make a motion to approve this project with the condition that the applicant return to the staff with the brick and mortar materials, as well as the cornice, I believe it was, for review prior to approval. So essentially an administrative review of those materials. Thank you.
So we have a motion. We have a second. Looking for raised hand.
Jonathan, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Benezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, wonderful. Well, we look forward to having this addition for the church, and I hope it serves them well, and look forward to your restoration project coming back to us.
Thank you.
And they're great neighbors, so I would support them as well.
Yes,
Love
they
for the
are.
piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, we'll move on to our next case. Dan, you'll keep a lookout for the applicant for case number 1. when they show up. Okay. So third case is 23050 Broadway Historic District, 3262 East 55th Street, demolition. Would the applicant please identify themselves and tell us about your project?
Yes, hi. My name is Jillian Bellino. On the agenda, it says Brett Parsons is going to present, but Brett made a last-minute decision to spend the weekend in Ireland, flying direct on our new Aer Lingus flight. So I will be presenting a proposal to demolish 3262 East 55th Street. Start with a little bit of background on the project, and I found out very late, so I've been doing a little bit of research on this throughout the morning. So bear with me as I go through some things that aren't on here. Seeking approval for the demolition of this 2-story, 2-family residential structure. The current owner is Tina Anthony and Julia Lombardo. They've owned it since October of 2017. It was transferred to them from an LLC in October of that year. Since 2014, this property has transferred several times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And in 2014, it did fall into state forfeiture. And then was purchased out of forfeiture and ended up where we are here. Let me see my other notes here. It has been condemned since 2014. So the Demolition Bureau has had this on hold for going on 9 years. Let me see here. We have received over those about 10 years, I think since 2010 or 2011, we've received 9 complaints about this property. We've boarded this property up 7 times, and we suspect that it's been vacant since at least 2012. There are currently $7,000 in back taxes on it. And our plan right now is to raise the structure and it will be a vacant lot. And I do apologize. I tried to turn on my video and it's just a black screen. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So yes, a little bit of background. This kind of came back around to us, I believe, in February of this year. A resident had made a complaint to Councilmember Starr that it was open. And I know that when we did our site visit last Monday, the side door was open and you could walk right in. This property is featured in a YouTube video by a somewhat notorious member of the Cleveland community who sends drones through these properties. And the council member did request that we move forward with demolition on this. So there are some photos. I know that in at least 1 or 2 sections of the foundation block was missing, had come completely apart from the foundation. There were some raccoons occupying the structure. I believe there was a fire in 2010. I think, Carl, you have better info on that than I do. It's just in researching, the garage was condemned in 1998, which is why there isn't a garage anymore. I believe that was torn down. That is all I really have to present. Happy to take questions and may do a try to answer them.
Thank you for that presentation. Dan, did this go to design review?
It did, yes, and Jessica has a report for us.
Yeah, so this project was reviewed at the East Design Review Committee on May 9th, and that committee did a motion for approval for demolition. And then we also have Marilyn from Slavic Village here if she'd like to say any words about the demolition.
All right, we'll take public comment on the demolition.
Good morning, everybody. It's Marilyn Moshinsky, Slavic Village Development. Yes, we are in support, the community is in support of this demolition. We have been dealing with this for many years. I've been in Slavic Village over 9 years. And I know it was scheduled to come for demo right before COVID, and then something happened and it kind of got prolonged. Once it goes into land bank, we're looking at working with either side of the residents on both sides to do, because it's a very tight lot for those who have been to the site. So possibly doing a lot split or seeing which owner would like the lot for an expansion, because those are tight lots over there. But everyone in the community is very excited to see this problem come down. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And if we could have a staff report.
We've kind of got a two-part staff report. Carl's going to kick us off, and then I'll follow up.
Thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Musson. This building was constructed in 1890 for Frank and Anna Bullock, who lived in the building for 2 decades. The original pre-1905 address is 2198 Wilson Avenue. It was also used as a rooming house during its lifetime, as various people were listed as having an address in city directories here. There have been various sales of the property over the years, but we didn't find any significant history or events associated with the property. In 1963, it became the home of Richard and Valeria Johnson. Valeria passed away in 1991 and Richard in 2005. As we have seen before in cases on Dennison Avenue and in the Grantwood allotments, the death of the owner leads to the decline of the home. The taxes accrued after Richard's death between 2005 and 2015, which included grass cutting, board ups, and sewer, up to $10,000. None of these red flags were acknowledged, and the property became an issue. No one investigated why this was happening. The property went into state foreclosure. A site visit was conducted in December 2015, and demolition was proposed as case number 16-003, but the case was dropped. In 2016, all the back taxes were wiped, and the property was transferred 4 times between May 2016 and October 2017, and no taxes have been paid, and additional grass cutting and board up fees have been added. There are currently $7,000 in back taxes. Again, all the red flags have been ignored. After reviewing the photos from 2015 and 2023, there has been some increased damage to the interior, but it remains largely the same. Photos I'm showing you now are from our site visit last week. As mentioned in previous cases, like Dennison Avenue, East 99th Street, and the Grantwood allotments, the growth of rogue trees have also added to damage to the exterior. If these had been removed 8 years ago, some of the additional damage to the building would not have occurred. Removal of these trees would also save some of the safety issues with the property, leaving a clear line of vision to the property. There needs to be additional review and policy development for the city to address this issue, not only in historic districts, but throughout the city. I'm going to finish up the rest of these photos. And then here are some photos from our site visit in 2015, which shows better detail of the property and the architectural elements. Mr. Musson.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brunges. As after our site visit last week, staff feels that while this home is certainly in a deteriorated state, it still has potential. Our feeling is that the addition to the rear, where the roof is missing, that you saw in some of the photos, that portion should be demolished, and then any trees and shrubs growing around the foundation should be removed. Like to see the home be properly secured and mothballed to give the CDC and the city the opportunity to explore rehab potentials. That being said, staff recommends tabling this proposal for 6 months to allow time to explore options other than demolition.
All right, thank you, Dan. With that, I will open it up for commission comments and questions.
I have a comment. Is this the property on 3262 East 55th we're still talking about, or did we move?
Yes.
Yes.
No, we're still talking about that,
Okay,
this case.
so you saying that, you saying that, you might want to keep it open for, to see if the CDC want to see if they want to see if it's still rehabable?
Yes, I mean, I know Ms. Mosinski is here from the CDC, and they're, she just spoke in favor of demolition, but staff feels that now that it's kind of at the forefront of everyone's attention, if it could be, mothballed properly, sealed up, boarded, the demolition to the rear be taken down. You can see that in the images now. It's got a completely open roof there in the back, that little one-story addition. Then remove the trees and shrubs from the foundation to, stop any further damage, just to give, the city a chance to work with the CDC or any potential other partners. There are other, habitat or other options out there. We haven't really reached out to anyone regarding this property to see what its potential could be. I don't know if Marilyn has any other comments about past efforts to explore rehab, or if this one's always just been sort of looked at as a demo case.
Back in 2015, we did look at it as a rehab, but we took a couple developers through at that time that were doing some rehabs in the neighborhood and thought it was beyond their cost estimates. They, and now it has gotten worse. I can tell you from our background, knowing that if this continued mothballing it and knowing how the city will mothball it and no one will keep it up. I mean, we don't have the funds to go and cut the grass every week. It'll continue to be open. Your YouTube video or guy will continue to take videos of it. This is something, it's not even in tax foreclosure yet. It needs to be going through this whole tax foreclosure process that could take another 2 years to get out of the hands of the people that own it currently, who I believe we did do some our Zach Germanic from our office here has done some background on it. They are out-of-state folks. So trying to get a hold of them, even to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, would take at least another year. So you're talking 2 to 3 years of this house sitting again vacant and just mothballed and nothing being done to it, because till we can get it out of their hands, we can't do anything, and just cutting the grass, it'll continue to get broken into. So we strongly encourage the Landmarks Commission to approve demolition. And so do the residents on both sides who have to live next to this for the next 2 years, as we do our due diligence on what's been going on when we've had it in our sites since 2015. So that's almost 10 years now. And we've done our due diligence and trying to save it. So we're asking again for the residents' sake to have this demolished and look at the very tight site, even to put a new house on that.
Okay.
I would like to make a comment as well. I think, typically we do like to see, rehab potential and due diligence going in. This house in its current state seems to be pretty far gone. And I understand the potential to demolish the back, but I think that it's going to be very costly to mothball it properly. And in particular, I think the concern is that it is currently being used as, it's a safety concern for illicit activities. And so I'm weighing all those things. I know it's a very charming house and you can see the charm of the original structure, but looking at the interior, it looks pretty far gone.
Thank you, Director. Yeah, I agree with those sentiments as well. But the recommendation of staff is to table this and allow time for consideration of stabilization and better mothballing and dealing with the trees. But the Design Review Committee and the CDC, as well as the neighbors, recommend demolition. So I will ask for a motion from the commission based on those comments. Ms. Anderson?
I have a question. How will the demolition of the back of the building and the removal of the trees, the continued board up, how will that be funded? Does anybody know?
It's added to the tax rate.
It's, I mean, I believe that would be a city action. Then the cost of that would just be added to the current taxes.
So the Demolition Bureau could look at pursuing, demoing the rear of the structure. Doing much else is I'm uncertain about. I don't want to say that's possible. We are looking at pursuing other actions related to nuisance abatement that aren't necessarily demolition and that are more stabilization. But those are not in place, and they're just not in place yet. And so to say that we would be able to do that, I don't want to commit to that on this meeting.
So you're saying that the scope of what you guys do is being modified to enable you to stabilize a structure and do like a partial demolition, board up what's left and
there's a possibility that idea is being thrown around at levels above me, and so something that the Demolition Bureau is obviously very interested in. We are very conservative here, the team that we have, and I love old buildings. I love this old house, but I agree with all the comments that it seems a bit far gone. And so, if we were able to do something, I believe that we would. But right now, I think the only tool in our toolbox is demolition. I know in the past we've tried to bid out a scope of work that included demoing a porch. And we had to abandon that project. That was years before I came, so I can't remember exactly what happened there. But it is something that we would like to explore. But right now, I believe all we can do, our only purview right now is demolition.
Thank you.
Regarding board up, the city's, I think, fairly long-term stance on this is we board up the first floor, which is obviously not particularly ideal because we leave the second floor open to the elements. And so also something that's come up very briefly and we haven't had much discussion around, what that boarding up of the entire structure looks like to maintain the structure. I think our goal for board up now is to keep people out rather than try to maintain the integrity of the structure. So like I said, that was just a very brief comment that was made in a meeting. So these are just some things that are on our mind in the Demolition Bureau, and but right now, the only thing we could maybe try is demolition of the rear, and we would have to really look at what that cost would be and whether it's cost effective for us.
Okay, thank you.
Director, your hand is up. You have further comments?
I do. I just wanted to add that I think, given that we have limited resources for things like mothballing, and we want to be really strategic about those resources, it's just a consideration to the commission, my colleagues, like, is this a top property in which we want to put those resources towards, or are there other properties that are closer to a redevelopment path that we'd want to, put energy and resources? And that's just a pragmatic fact of lack of resources, and just something for my other colleagues to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edmond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really, you really have the impression here that the CDC has done an exhaustive due diligence over a long time. Given the state of the property and the potential value that it could ultimately have versus what it would take to get it to that point, I find it difficult to imagine how that could actually pragmatically work. With some regret, I do support the demolition.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Mazinski, do you have further comments?
Director, Wong commented on exactly what I was saying. If we let this sit, we don't have the sources. Plus, we'd have to find types of subsidy for the developer because it would be costly. The building itself, I mean, you're talking just to preserve it, pay for the taxes. It hasn't even gone into, I wanted to see, it hasn't even gone through the tax foreclosure process yet. So if it hasn't even gone through the county's courts yet, you're talking 3 years. So 3 years of mothballing along with keeping an eye on this. And, we have enough houses that we need to keep an eye on, let alone this one. So I'm just strongly urging, as long as from the council person and the residents again, to approve the demolition so that we can figure out a better and higher use for this property.
All right, understood. Mr. Dryer?
I was going to second Mr. Edmonds' motion.
I don't think he made a motion yet, but okay, we understand where we stand. Michelle?
Thank you. This property is pretty far gone, and unfortunately in this particular district, there's some other properties that look like they definitely need immediate attention. I would like to make sure that if this one comes down, nothing else does, and I don't know quite how to do that, but obviously this went on a path of, destruction by neglect quite a while ago. So I think somebody needs to pay some attention to the other properties in the neighborhood that are also dilapidated and empty before they get to the condition that this one is in right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And every time a case like this comes up, which is far too often, we have a similar discussion, or it's just so regrettable that there's not a system in place to identify these properties that are subject to this ongoing neglect at an earlier stage so that they can be effectively stabilized and mothballed so that they have much better potential for resurrection. And so spending some time, Landmark staff working with the building and housing and the demolition people and even the tax authorities to try to come up with a system to be more proactive in identifying these threatened properties would be highly beneficial. But in this particular case, just looking at the pictures and the recognizing the due diligence that has gone into the property to this point, I have to agree that I think this one's too far gone and deserving of demolition. All right, so with that, Mr. Edmund, did you present a motion?
I did not, but I'm willing to. I move that the demolition be approved.
Okay, and Mr. Dryer will recognize your second
Yes.
on that motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Reluctantly, yes, but I don't think I'm going to vote for another one in this area.
Mr. Benezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Adley, yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
All right, the motion to approve passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to case number 4, which is 23015 Ohio City Historic District, 3911 John Avenue, a garage addition, which we saw as a concept plan in February of this year. Would the applicant please introduce yourselves and tell us again about your project?
Hi, good morning to the commission. We did take this project, the garage addition portion of this project to the commission earlier this year for concept review. So we're back for final review. This is 3911 John Avenue. In 2021, I presented a plan to renovate and do an addition to the existing home, which was approved and has been underway. Next slide. This is just a summary of what was approved in September of 2021. Next slide. Again, what was approved and is underway now. Next slide. This is the context of John Court. The intention when we had the previous approval was that this rear portion of the structure would eventually become a breezeway to an attached garage with like a family room above. And this is the kind of current condition of the exterior. They actually started siding this week, but I did not have an updated photo for you. So next slide. John Court has is an alley that has garages, carriage homes, rear houses, as well as a couple garages that do have, you know, family room and roof deck type spaces above. So it's a bit of everything. It's obviously open parking, as you can see. Next slide. Again, this is the current condition of the massing of the addition at the rear of the house. Next slide. This is the front porch and massing from the front, just for reference, from John Avenue. Next slide. This is looking at the floor plans. We had gone back to Ohio State Design Review Committee several times, kind of tweaking and refining this based on feedback. When we originally came to you all with the concept review, we had gotten very similar feedback as what we'd received from Ohio City Design Review for the concept level. So we continued to tweak and eventually did receive final approval from them last week. So this was the final plan that we received approval from them on. 2-car garage on the first floor, a second floor family room, media room type of programming. It's not an ADU, it's just an extension of the home for the clients. And then a roof deck plan. One of the changes that we made, or two of the changes that we made that you can see in plan, are adding a shed roof, which will be more visible in elevations at the garage door level, and then pulling back kind of like the pop-up on the roof deck plan to help alleviate the massing a little bit from the alley view. Next slide. So here you can see it in elevation. On the top, we are looking at the east elevation, which is the interior side yard of the property. Another comment that the committees that have both been united in was bringing down the total height of the structure to make sure that it was in alignment with the existing, the highest gable of the main part of the house when we did that. And on the west elevation, which is the opposite interior side yard, we did add 2 windows to help break up the massing of that facade. That was a suggestion by Ohio City Design Review that we took in. And then from the south elevation, you can see that shed, that small shed roof portion over the garage doors, which was aiming to bring, you know, a more pedestrian scale to this facade that faces the alleyway. And then the north elevation is the interior backyard elevation that faces the, you know, backside of the other house. It kind of creates an interior courtyard. Next slide. And then this is the proposed palette. It's the same palette that was previously approved at the main part of the house, just extending the same color scheme and language and material here. Next slide. And then looking a little more closely at that rear facade, again, same colorway as the main portion of the house, same lighting, wall lanterns, and using a fir bracket, simple bracket at that shedded roof portion. The windows will match the main house. They're aluminum clad woods, simulated divided light windows by Andersen, in the bronze finish, which reads like a dark brown. I think, is that the last one? I believe it is.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll look for a design review report.
Right, the Ohio City Design Review Committee saw this project last week and voted to recommend approval unanimously. Ms. Marinucci has been very responsive to the feedback from the committee. They really liked the shed roof over the garage door to help bring down the scale. There was some discussion about bumping out what they referred to as the doghouse on the top of the garage, that little, I guess, third floor stair tower. There's some discussion about seeing that bump back from the northern wall so that it matched the setback of the southern wall, but ultimately the project was approved as presented, just with the recommendation that the applicant explore and consider the aforementioned modification.
All right, thank you, Dan. And are there any public comments to this project?
I don't believe so.
Seeing none, ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This staff reviewed the project and we generally agree with design review, but are fine with the third floor doghouse area remaining as proposed. John Court is a very tight alley with all the different buildings on it. This one will be a nice addition, and so we're generally in support of the proposal.
All right, thank you, Jessica. With that, I'll open it up for commission comments and questions. Let's see. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Ms. Marinucci is always very nicely concise and a very clear presentation, which is always appreciated. I think it's a very thoughtful addition to the back and what is now turning into a very nice house, one which I'm very jealous of. I think you've done a great job about being very mindful to heights and material palettes and, you know, everything that we always bring up every time we have a presentation. So, very supportive. Thank you, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you. Any other commission comments? Hearing none, I'll add my comments now. I think that this continues to be just a wonderful enhancement to this old house that was a great starting point on a wonderful street. And I agree that the architect and the applicant, the owners, have just done a fantastic job in integrating this thoughtful addition to work in harmony with the existing structure. So very nice job. Director Hung.
Yes, I agree that this is a very nice job, and you've done a great job listening to the design review committees. You've tweaked and adjusted, and I do feel that the heights and everything are all appropriate. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Wonderful. We have a motion. Can I have a second?
This is Carter. I'll second.
Thank you, Carter. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Benezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Edmond?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Director Wong?
Yes.
Mr. Trosick?
Yes.
And Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Can't wait to see the final finished product.
Thank you. The clients are very excited, hoping to break ground on this portion later this year if we can get through building the housing smoothly. So that's the next
Exactly.
challenge.
That's wonderful. Great. Can't wait to see it done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. All right. Assuming that the applicant for case number 1 has not shown up, Dan?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they have not shown up, so I think it would be appropriate just to do a retable. I know we voted to untable it, but we can retable it now and then.
All right. Yeah, we should have made sure the applicant was here before
Yeah,
we took it.
my bad.
Or mine. You know, another rookie mistake by the chair. All right, so can I have a motion to put this case number 23036 back on the table? Mr. Bernese?
Yes, I move that we table case 23-036.
And Mr. Edmund, do I see you for a second?
Second.
Okay, wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Benazzi,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick. Looks like he might have stepped out, and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
All right, the motion to table passes unanimously.
All right, great. All right, with that, we'll move on to concept plans. Case number 23051, Ohio City Historic District, 1852 Fulton Road addition. Would the applicant again reintroduce herself and tell us about this project?
Hello, it's me again. I'm Anthony Marinucci. I don't think I introduced myself the first time, but I'm the architect on the project, and I believe my client, Kim Heinen, the homeowner, is also on the call. If she has anything to add in, let me know, Kim. So we're at 1852 Fulton Road. It's existing single-family home that is really, really well preserved. It's got some great detailing, as we'll see. The property, according to the Sanborn maps, has seen the existing footprint seems to be pretty consistent with what we can tell is or think is original. The rear half of the property has seen some changes. There was a rear house cottage built on the back half of the property that you can see on the 1912 map. So sometime between 96 and 1912, we saw the rear house addition. Otherwise, it looks like there's just some accessory use buildings. Next slide, please. Currently, the house, the lot is very irregular, I would say. Looks like that, as with many properties in Ohio City, the property lines have changed over time. There's been some consolidating and has resulted in this really bizarre, for lack of a better explanation, shaped lot. And so you can see the existing front house, which is the focus of our work. And then you can see the existing rear house is kind of in like a flag shaped parcel to the rear. And I believe that was the shape of that parcel is to maintain frontage to Fulton for that rear property. So they sort of have a split driveway straddles both property lines. Currently, Kim Heinen, the owner, owns both properties. So she does have control over each parcel. As you can see on our proposed site plan, we're proposing a second floor addition to that rear one-story massing, as well as an attached one-car garage. That's the focus of our work today. I do think that we could have a potential variance, not that that's your purview, but just FYI that the attached garage is not located in the rear half of the lot. So I need to see how zoning and planning would review this particular lot in terms of the variance, as it's a little bit bizarre. Next slide. This is the existing condition. Again, it's got some really beautifully preserved detailing. It's really great folk Victorian. And we want to continue sort of that same language with our addition. Next slide. This is a closer look at that south facade, which is going to see like the biggest kind of impact in terms of this proposal. You can see in this right-hand photo that one-story portion, the lowest kind of level portion is where we would propose the second floor addition. And then the one car garage will go where that black car in the photo is in space. Next slide. This is a closer look at the rear of that property. The north facade, we're about maybe give or take 3 feet from that property line. And then the current rear door that you see in that west facade photo is the mudroom door. And then you can see how the existing kind of first floor mudroom space interacts with the rest of that back facade. It's already set back, and the first floor windows and porch that you see there will remain as is in our proposal. Next slide. Looking at the existing roof plan, note that I flipped the site plan so that the front is at Plan North. And you can see how we are kind of growing the property to the rear. And now I would like to keep the garage inborn from the width of the existing house. Next slide. From a program standpoint, first floor, the mudroom door stays the same and that function stays the same. One car garage simply attaches to. On the second floor, we are going to be expanding the existing primary bedroom to include a small office area as well as closet and laundry. Next slide. I'm looking at existing rear elevation and side elevation, and then directly below the proposed of each. Our plan is to reuse that top window and the existing rear facade in the new addition. And then on this at the rear, and then at the side, we're proposing a little cross dormer window in that little office area. It was important for me to make sure that that second floor addition still remained deferential to the main gable of the house. And then so it does give us like a little bit of a clipped kind of clipped roof situation in terms of head height. So the dormer that faces the side elevation was to kind of maintain like a consistent 6'8" head height for that window while providing just more light and view into that space. Next slide. Oh, that's it. Sorry. The intention, this is still concept review, but the intention, I didn't include it here, is to maintain kind of the same detailing, colors, materiality as the main home.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Dan. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
All right, Dan, has this concept plan gone to design review?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The Ohio City Design Review Committee reviewed this concept last week and was generally supportive of the proposal. There was some discussion about the window locations and the idea of trying to reuse the existing second floor window at the rear of the home, but overall the committee's primary concern seemed to be the turn radius and functionality of the garage and window locations. Committee comments were overall favorable, and they look forward to seeing the details when this comes back for final approval.
All right, very good. And we have a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project was sent over to our zoning colleagues to see about any variances that may be needed. So that review is in process. So hopefully we will hear back regarding that. And then staff is generally in agreement with the design review committee. The project is an interesting solution to putting a garage on a very oddly shaped parcel.
All right, thank you, Jessica. With that, I'll open it up to the commission for their comments on this plan. Mr. Bernese?
Thank you again, Mr. Strickland. I promise I'm not trying to be overly chummy. I was thinking about this house the other day because I have a project in Brooklyn. And so on the site visits, I literally drive down Fulton. And I was just, there's many houses on Fulton that I admire, but this was one in particular that always catches my eye. And I think, as always, it's a very thoughtful addition, even, maintaining a sense of separation from the original house, making sure from a sightline standpoint, I'm already thinking of this in plan and how you're really not going to notice the addition, although there is an interesting driveway condition with that cottage. I'm also intrigued by what zoning is going to say, because the back half of your lot is just like a weird shape. So if you find that technically the center point that is the back half of your lot, I'm like, that's not really the lot, because there's nothing back. I don't know. That's not my purview. Regardless, without seeing the materials, but I know I'm going to assume, which is never a good thing to assume, but you'll be thoughtful about materials when you come with vinyl. And I think in general, it's a very great addition, and I'm always happy to see these clear, concise, well thought out additions to very well preserved historic homes that continue to impress anytime. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernese. I don't see any other hands currently, but, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick question. Yeah, this looks like a very well thought out proposal. Are there any changes on the exterior? Just want a clarification. Because obviously we're not going to see this from the street, but and this is a lovely, lovely home.
You mean photos of the exterior?
No, are you making any changes from on the exterior of the front of the house? I'm sorry, that was not.
No,
Yeah.
no changes to the front.
Changes. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, this seems like a great addition, and I would be in support of any variances you need in order to put the garage where, in order to maintain that garage placement, because you can't put it obviously on the back half of the property. So, yes, very nice work.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. And that's a very good comment, that adding that the Landmarks Commission, if it's the sentiment of the entire commission, I would also agree that we could include in our future motion when this project comes back, that we would support a variance for consideration of the garage in this location. Director Hung.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's because of the reasoning around the parcel shape and the existing structures that are back there already that create a challenge, a difficulty to do the garage differently. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Seeing no further hands, I'll just reinforce that, yeah, I think that this addition, the window placement and the garage are very well thought out and integrate very well with the existing structure. So does the applicant feel like you've received sufficient comments from the commission so that you can further your design?
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.
All right, that's great. All right, so that concludes our review of concept plans. We'll move on to a review and approval of meeting minutes from December 12th, 2013, July 14th, 2026, October 27th, 2016, January 26th, 2017, and April 27th, 2023. So these minutes were distributed for review by the commission. Is there any discussion on the minutes, or I would entertain a motion to approve these minutes?
Mr. Chair, I did want to raise a question related to the minutes and the approval of the minutes. I believe it was Mr. Dreyer who raised the question, if we were not present on the commission, we ought not to vote for the minutes. That was the suggestion he made. But looking back, I'm curious who from this body has been on since December 2013. And perhaps it's a question, Mr. Chair, for our legal representation from the city.
All right, Mr. Roberts, would you like to weigh in on the question with regard to review of minutes if you were not present?
Sure, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, my video no longer is operating. So you'll just have a picture of me. In general, the Robert's Rules of Order does not require that a member of the body to have been present in order to approve prior minutes. There is a built-in assumption that the integrity of the minute taking is preserved through that board, commission, that body. And further, there also Robert's Rules of Order does not really call for approval of minutes. It is rather, if there is a mistake in how the minutes were taken, there could be a motion to correct the minutes, but otherwise, it is something that prior minutes can be approved by the body if you determine or verify that they were taken in the normal course of that particular body, in this case, the Secretary of the City Cleveland Landmarks Commission. I can't, and to Director Wong's question about who was present, I think Carl Brunges would have the best information on that in terms of these particular dates. I know that he probably was the responsible, well, at least, I don't know, actually the dates are maybe predates him, but short of having a seminar on how Robert's Rules of Order handles minutes, that's, I hope that answers, Mr. Chair and Director Wong, what you were concerned about.
It's a sufficient answer for me, and anything to avoid a seminar on Robert's rules would be welcome.
Yeah, I support you there.
Mr. Chair, I can answer a little bit here. The only one that I was not present for is the December 12th, 2013. So the rest of these were in my time here. And specifically the 2016s and the 2017s, I know I typed up the original draft back then. And previously, prior to all our video recordings, that these were all audio recorded and the minutes were taken in note form, and minutes were based on Mr. Pettit's notes, and that's how all of our minutes are done. It's from his notes and from the audio recording, or when we were doing our current ones and have been doing since pandemic, have been from notes taken by the secretary or Jessica, since she has come on, since she's been doing the minutes, and backed up listening to any recordings that are on YouTube as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for that clarification. And I joined the commission in September of 2014. So even these December minutes predate me. I think Mr. Dreyer may have been on at that time, but he may not recall attending that meeting. So with that, based on that explanation, I think anyone can provide a motion and a second, whether they attended these meetings or not. Director Hung?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Me, that was Kurt, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Carter. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, motion to approve the minutes. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Benezi,
Yes.
looks like Mr. Dryer had to step away. Mr. Edmund? Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Director Wong?
Yes.
Mr. Trosick?
Yes.
And Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the minutes are approved.
Wonderful. All right, we'll move on to administrative reports.
All right, unless
Do you have
you
anything?
have a chair's report, Mr. Strickland, I'll move into the secretary's report. Our next meeting is June 8th, and that will be our first hybrid meeting. So we're asking any commission members that are available to attend the meeting in person to please join us here in room 514 here at City Hall. I think we ironed out any kinks, hopefully, with getting things up and running this morning. And thank you all for your patience and bearing with us while we get through that. We will also be adding a new Cleveland landmark to our roster soon. City Council's DPNS committee voted to designate Advent Lutheran Church as Cleveland's newest landmark. Still needs to go before the full City Council for final vote on designation, but there's no reason to think that it won't get approval as soon as it's on their agenda. Commission saw this and nominated the property for landmarking back on March 24th, 2022. And Mr. Brunges has been working with the congregation over the past couple of years to make this happen. So thank you, Carl, and congratulations to Advent Lutheran. Also, Landmark staff met with Slavic Village staff yesterday to discuss some preliminary plans for some development on East 55th and Broadway Avenue. Landmark staff and Slavic Village would like to get some folks from the city, the local design review committee, and some of the members of the commission together to check out buildings in the area that would be impacted by the proposed concept, so the developer and the CDC can get a feel for how the whole plan will be received by the commission when they're ready to come in and present for concept to us. So you'll see some emails about that. And then as a final note, we're working on scheduling some site visits for demolition proposals for Seabright Terrace on East 114th Street, which is an individually designated landmark, and then several houses involved in a new construction proposal on Garden Avenue in the Brooklyn Center Historic District. So again, you'll be seeing some emails and meeting requests from that in the near future. That's all I have.
All right. And that site visit for that Broadway and 55th development, do you anticipate, how far out will that site visit likely be?
We were looking, it'll probably be end of summer, August, so it's not an immediate thing, but yeah, we just met with them yesterday to discuss that. And we also, discussed that East 55th Historic District and kind of the concerns that were raised today, like Ms. Anderson brought up about, let's make this the last demo we see here, and how we can be more proactive there. So overall, it was a good discussion. I think it was helpful for Landmark staff to sit down with Slavic Village staff and just kind of, try and look at things a little more holistically. So looking forward to the August site visit so that we can kind of see what's cooking down there and give you guys an opportunity to do the same.
Okay, very good. And in consideration of going back to a hybrid or live meetings for commission members who are available and in town to participate, have you worked out the kinks as far as validation for parking?
Yes, I don't think that process has changed since Carl knows what he's doing. So it's a little different from 15 years ago when I was up here and we had an old stamp that technology's changed a little.
Like riding a bike, just have to get back on it.
And then, so I think all of us had been issued badges. I don't think I can't remember any new commission members have come on since we were doing remote meetings, but would encourage all commission members to find their their badges to get into City Hall and make Landmark staff aware if you're not able to find your badge, so that they can go through the process of reissuance so that you can get into the building more easily. All right, any other questions or comments from commission members? With that, I will, do we have to move to adjourn the meeting, or can we just adjourn?
Nope, that's just you.
All right, good. With that, I will adjourn the meeting and looking forward to seeing everyone in person on June 8th.
All right, thank you all very much.
All right, thanks.
Great holiday weekend.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
too.
you too.
Good holiday. Bye.